Stevens in a Monaro. From 5, car number 43, Graham Stones in a Mazda. From 6, 351, Russell Kramer in a Falcon. From position 7, car 40, Gary Wilmington in a Mustang. From 8, car 28, Tony Herbert in an Escort. From 9 is car 9, Joseph Said in a Fiat. From position number 10, car 84, John Anderson in a Datsun. From 11 is car 44, Mal Rose in a Tirana. And from 12, car 6, Trevor Ashby in an Escort. Also starting today in Stones, Laurie Hazelton, Steve Wasley, John Tesserero. The man they will all have to beat is our pace man, our pole sitter. That's Peter Fitzgerald from Victoria, 34 years of age. Has been driving a Starion, of course, in the series production racing, a Porsche in the Sports Sedan, 79, second in the Australian Sports Car Championship, third in the Group E Series here at Amaroo, second in the Sports Sedan Series, and fifth in the GT title. He's an all-rounder, Gary.
Certainly is. Fitzgerald took the checkered flag in the first round here last meeting, but John Burke finished up with the prize after Cam's put the cancelled stamp on Fitzgerald's victory for passing under the yellow flag. So they took all the points away from him. He's got to come out and start all over again. So it's the man that's alongside him on the front row of the grid that has the points on the board so far in the Comalco Wunderlich Sports Sedan Series.
That's John Burke in the Brian Hilton Toyota Celica, the 2GO supported car from up there on the coast. And it was very, very quick indeed here at the last Amaroo meeting. Cloud cover is all over the circuit, sprinkling rain outside. All this horsepower ready to be unleashed in the Comalco Wunderlich Series.
What a hot field.
And they get away with the Porsche away very smartly, about 2 car lengths. Bob Stevens goes between 2 cars. Burke is in more strife than speed, Gordon, in 77, manages to keep to the outside. Maybe got a clip off Bob Stevens coming up for the start. Stevens back into third place. I think it's Bob Tittle up into second now, as the rest of the field goes through, including Gary Wilmington in car number 40, as they go through and now head down the back straight towards Mazda Corner.
Yes, it was Bob Stevens that gave Burke a shoulder as they came off the grid, and by gee, he did well to control the car, really, because he could have ended up in the wall right beneath our commentary position if he hadn't been careful. But he had to ease off ultimately on the turbo, and subsequently has been shuffled right back through the field. Bad luck for John Burke.
Here they come along the Wunderlich corner and now onto the front straight at Amaroo Park.
This is the way it looks from inside the Porsche of Peter Fitzgerald. And just have a listen to it. Notice the mud getting across the circuit on the corner there at the top of the hill. And there.
Busy, isn't he? That gives you a good indication for those folk watching around Australia, Amaroo Park telecast, some of the terrain of the circuit here. It is really a driver circuit, and it's a handful of a circuit too, particularly when you're driving a Porsche. As you can see, Peter Fitzgerald at work as we carried you through with RaceCam. There's 68 in strife. Ken Davidson in the Capri. Ken's finding a safe place to put the machine before the rest of the field comes around. He joins back in the fray as Fitzgerald leads Bob Stevens down towards the Lake Bend with Bob Tyndall in third place, and they've cleared out 250 metres.
After that incident off the grid involving John Burke, by the way, he did leave the circuit, called into the pits for a quick check, and is back out on the circuit, but completely out of contention.
Well, he was leading the points series because, as you mentioned earlier, Gary, Peter Fitzgerald's points were taken off him in the first round. So it's marvellous how things have a way of squaring themselves up.
Talking about squaring up, it's pretty hard to get past this car. If you're behind Bob Stevens on the circuit here at Amaroo, this big Monaro looks like the proverbial.
And it is a handful. Still a very competitive race car.
Great contrast, isn't it, between these two machines?
Yes.
Up front, the Porsche of Fitzgerald and the big Monaro of Bob Stevens.
It's the Pacific Waste entry, the Monaro of Bob Stevens. Not that far back behind Peter Fitzgerald. In fact, there is the gap as they come up to Wunderlich corner again. And the third place driver is Bob Tyndall. There comes Tyndall now, up to the turn.
Nice looking machine, that Tirana. Somewhere between the other two, I guess, because the Porsche is very lightweight. The Monaro, a great hulking brute of a car, and the Tirana, I guess, would split the difference.
Amazing, sometimes with the fiberglass bodies and so forth. They sometimes look a little bulkier than they suggest. Or Fitzgerald coming down towards Honda corner again. Biggest problem for the drivers being the fact that they are running on slicks today, and there's that fine film of rain around the circuit.
The top 5 cars all qualified for this race in exactly the same time, 52.4 seconds, so there's not much between them.
There's Tyndall coming through. He's trying to pull back Bob Stevens, and there you can see Stevens going up the Bitchapave Hill, still trailing Peter Fitzgerald in the Stanlite Porsche. Best time, of course, to have a look at RaceCam is when you've got cars in front of you. And here comes Peter Fitzgerald, the dangerous part of the race for him now, because he's got to thread his way in and out of some of these slower cars. We'll let the effects take over as we do another lap with Peter Fitzgerald.
Where are they? Where are they? He just wants to eat them all up.
But look at this, though. While we were watching that, look at Bob Stevens. He's caught Fitzgerald coming down on the inside.
Oh, this will be interesting. Fitzgerald really hanging the car out, hanging the tail out there.
Bob thought about the outside and ducking back underneath, coming out of the corner. Fitzgerald's car's become skatey all of a sudden, out against the wall, although he came off that corner quite comfortably. Now we'll see if Stevens can peg back the Porsche. They're going to be running up into traffic now as they head to the top of Bitchapave Hill. Look at the traffic right in front of them.
Oh, slower car there. Remember, Stevens is right behind Fitzgerald.
There's Stevens, still running in second place. Fitzgerald, wide open racetrack, at least down to Honda corner as they come down to the left-hander. This is where the car was skating the last time. That's much better. Straight down, passing another of the slower cars. Still a couple of laps left. And right behind Peter Fitzgerald is Bob Stevens in the Pacific Waste Monaro. They both take that corner very gingerly. Applied horsepower now as they swing down the backside of the course towards Mazda corner.
2 laps remaining.
Down to Honda, another of the slower cars just in front of them. Driver very courteously signals through to the outside, Peter Fitzgerald, and Stevens will try and take the gap with him.
Fitzgerald deliberately held off there for a fraction of a second, then tried to whip past before the corner and leave Stevens in the lurch, but Stevens managed to get round the slower car as well.
1 lap remains in the Comalco Wunderlich Sports Sedan Series, and Bob Stevens very close indeed to Peter Fitzgerald's Porsche. Fitzgerald comes out of that corner nicely and straight. Stevens really has a job here on the inside as the two of them come down, but Fitzgerald knows exactly where Bob Stevens is. Only about 2 more corners left for Bob Stevens. Can he do it? He's slingshot down on the inside, jumps the little, and away he goes through in the last corner virtually of the race. Bad luck there for Peter Fitzgerald, but is he going to come back? They're coming up to the last corner, the right-hander. The checkered flag is already out, and Bob Stevens, the veteran Sydney driver from Annangrove, across the line, and he'll take the checkered flag. Closest finish of the day here at Amaroo Park, and bad luck to Peter Fitzgerald, who led that event down to 2 corners from the finish. But they often say if you take on an Amaroo Park specialist like Bob Stevens, you have to expect competition all the way down to the checkered flag.